Hi everyone, this is Greg. He's a college advisor at UC Berkeley. Hi Greg.
Hello.
Can you introduce yourself and describe your role as a college advisor at UC Berkeley?
Yeah, hello. I'm so happy to do this. Thank you, Marlai. My name is Greg Cera. I'm a college advisor for the College of Letters and Science at UC Berkeley. The College of Letters and Science has over 20,000 undergraduate students and over 80 majors programs are housed within the college. In total, there are 6 undergraduate schools within Berkeley, and the College of Letters and Science is the biggest one where a majority of the undergraduate students study. My role as an advisor is to assist undergraduate students plan their academic programs in school, so identify majors and minors that they'd like to pursue, help students evaluate why they would like to pursue the major or minor that they're thinking about going on with, seeing how those majors tie to potential graduate school programs and careers that they're considering. As well as then I have some specialized roles. I work with pre-medical and pre-health students to help them prepare for medical school and all the different graduate health professions programs. And I also work with students who are thinking about studying abroad to help see how those programs fit together too. Along with those things, I assist students with academic success strategies, so time management, study skills strategies, and beyond that, I assist students to understand the resources as they exist on campus, different resource offices that can be helpful as one is studying.
So when students are on campus, right? So you mentioned about success strategy. What are the strategy that's been working for the students?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Partly it's knowing the resources that exist on campus that can provide support and are there to provide support. I think one of the biggest changes from studying in high school to going on to college is sometimes in high school students will think about the resources that exist at high school to help, sort of as like, oh, I have to do those things, or oh, I really don't want to have to do those things because I'll be seen as needing help.
Right.
Whereas in college, I think a very salient point, an important point that students realize, hopefully, is that the resources in college are necessary for everybody in order to be successful. And those types of resources that exist that can promote that kind of success are different offices for scholarships and fellowships. At Berkeley, that office is called the Office of Undergraduate Research and Scholarships. And that office assists undergraduate students identify research opportunities on campus, as well as identify scholarship opportunities that exist. Other offices, such as the Career Counseling Library, help students sort through their interests and motivations for what they'd like to major in or what they'd like their career path to be, and that can help address a student's anxiety when it comes to knowing what to study or why they'd like to study something, because I always talk about it as an existential malaise, sort of when somebody's confused about what they'd want to do or why they'd want to do something, sometimes the motivation decreases if somebody is thinking to themselves, I don't know why I'm in college, I don't know why I'm studying this. There's an office that helps address that kind of question or problem. Students will go to the Career Counseling Library and work with counselors about how to figure out how to ask questions, how to sort through the pros and cons and weigh the different options and motivations and interests they have. And that's a really useful office too. Other offices on campus that I think are very important for college students to take advantage of are offices that support specific populations of students. So for instance, at Berkeley, there's an office called the EOP office, the Educational Opportunities Partnership Office, and that general office assists students in a number of different groups of students. There's assistance for undocumented students. Within that office, there's assistance for student parents, so students who have kids. There's assistance for transfer students. There's a transfer student office within EOP. In addition, there's assistance for oh goodness, you name it. There's a veterans office. So
Low-income students?
Low-income students.
First-generation students?
First-generation students. Yes, students from disadvantaged socioeconomic backgrounds. There's there's these additional support resources that are there specifically to help navigate the big bureaucracy that is a university. All universities are big and all universities are confusing. And for students who have had family members go to school beforehand, they have a guide in their parents or in their relatives, so it can become a bit of a disequal advantage to those students. But that's why these kinds of offices exist at most universities on campus, including all the University of California campuses, California State Universities, as well as other schools like Stanford, or any of the Bay Area schools.
So how do students find out about this, about these offices?
Yeah, oftentimes they will talk to their professors who will point them in the direction of these kinds of offices. Oftentimes at admission, after someone decides to go to University of California, the specific offices will reach out to students, but as well, oftentimes students will come to school and not know about the offices, and they'll come into my office in a little bit of academic distress, and I'll talk to them about the offices. So academic advisors are oftentimes a source of information where you can go as a student and come in and say, Greg, I'm struggling academically. I think I'm having... for example, I'm having challenges transitioning to college. These are the kinds of problems I'm having. And then folks will share the challenges they face, and I'll talk with them about the challenges, and we'll identify resources to be of assistance. That's my promotion for being for academic advisors, and seeing an advisor and getting to know your advisors. That our job is there to be able to assist you as a student to help.
So, from your experience, the student, what works for the student, and what does not work for them in terms of seeking help, in terms of trying to get through college?
Sure.
Specifically, UC Berkeley.
Yeah, I think students who are successful at Berkeley, on one hand, seek resources early on in their college career. So they'll come to school and they'll start talking with their advisor. They'll start talking with their professors, and then they'll learn about other people on campus in these different offices, which makes a big place like Berkeley, a big campus like Berkeley, seem much smaller and much more personal. So they have a connection in all these different offices, and they'll know people who are there to support them. Definitely, I think successful students at Berkeley will take advantage of professor and graduate student instructor office hours for all of their courses. So I talk often about working with students, encouraging them, if they're struggling academically, to try to make a habit to go to the GSI sessions that exist, the grad student instructor sessions. At other schools, they're called TAs, teaching assistants.
Have you seen the difference in terms of seeking help between first generation student versus non-first generation student, and how do they do for the first generation student to actually overcome their differences, overcome their challenges?
That's a really good question, and I do think part of it involves taking advantage of the college resources right off the bat, so right from the beginning, because for every student, the transition to college from high school or the transition to a four-year university from a community college is a big transition. And to help ease that transition and make it as smooth as possible and to promote academic success as well as possible, those support resources that exist, identifying what those are early in one's first semester or before one's first semester, and then making those habits of going to those resources. Another resource, for example, at Berkeley is a office called the Student Learning Center, and that whole office has many, many tutors, many, many staff members who are there specifically to provide academic support and tutoring for courses such as math, chemistry, physics, computer science, as well as writing. I feel that the writing tutors on campus are immensely valuable for first-generation students, especially who may not have used English as their first language for their entire lives, because academic writing is its own special, confusing process. And to get a good sense for how to do academic writing, taking the college writing courses that your college prescribes early during your time in college, and then taking advantage of those writing tutors can be so helpful. I also talk with my students often about how in my last master's program, I would write the draft of a paper, I would write a part of a paper, and then I'd hand over that draft to Lauren, and Lauren would get her red pen out and start circling things that didn't make any sense, or crossing things out that were incorrect or unclear, and then give it back to me. And having someone else review my work and proof my work, and then with me adapting to those changes that were suggested, it always made what I turned in a stronger paper. So taking advantage of writing tutors, I think, is a very valuable thing for students to do right off the bat, right from the beginning.
So all these resources are free, right?
That's right, absolutely. Yeah, all the resources on campus are included as part of one's tuition and fees.
Now, in terms of, have you seen, like, Asian, right? There's a high population of Asian at UC Berkeley.
That's right. Yeah. Slightly over 50% of the entire undergrad student population is Asian American.
Are these Southeast Asian or these majority of East Asian?
A majority of that group, so over 50% of the entire student population is Asian. Of that group, the largest proportion are Chinese students, Korean students, Indian students, and there's a group of Southeast Asian students, absolutely. It's a smaller percentage of students, but their folks are well represented as well.
Okay. Now, how are they doing compared to the larger population in terms like Southeast Asian students? Are they struggling differently, or are how from your experience or from your observation, do you see any any differences that people could learn from?
That's a good question. I don't have any definite statistics about academic performance differences for specifically Southeast Asian students compared to the larger student population. I think generally, and this isn't even just for Asian students, but generally for students whose first language wasn't English, I think the biggest challenge tends to be college writing. That in the College of Letters and Science, there are 2 required writing courses that all students must complete by the end of their second year. And I see that when a student comes into school and is potentially nervous about taking that class or those classes in sequence, and they'll put them off for their first semester, and they'll put them off for the second semester, that if they're only beginning to take the college writing course in their third semester to complete it by the end of their fourth semester, that student may not have developed their writing as well as they would have if they started right off the bat by taking the first college writing course in fall semester of their freshman year or in their first semester, and then follow that up immediately in the next semester with the second college writing course. That when students are, and it's compounding because students are sometimes nervous about the writing because they're lack the confidence that they'll do well in the writing, and therefore they'll push off the writing courses. And I know that can be a challenge, and I know that there's some anxiety that comes from taking that kind of writing course. So sometimes my advice is, if you take that course early, then you can take the second course in the second semester, and those courses are designed as writing skills toolbox courses, that by taking those writing courses right at the very beginning, you're gaining skills in writing that will assist you in every single college class that you'll take after that. So I think that's probably one of the most important things. In addition, being placed or placing oneself oftentimes in the correct course when someone starts college, I think is very important too. I guess what I mean by that is sometimes students will come in with advanced placement scores in mathematics or science, and on one hand, sometimes those students will think like, oh, I can just jump ahead in math. I have that math background and I'll be fine. So somebody may come in with AP Math, jump into a higher level math course, and not do nearly as well as they could have otherwise if they had if they were a little conservative with their choice of course and placed themselves at sort of an advisor's recommended course level, or at a math professor's recommended course level. Or on the other side of things, if somebody is very nervous about the course that they might choose in math or science to begin with, sometimes they'll want to place themselves at a lower level course that might be appropriate. So they might place themselves at a lower level course and then just be really bored in the class. And then sometimes I see that then they don't go to that class that much because they think, oh, I know this stuff, I'll be fine.
It's easy, right?
And then all of a sudden the course creeps up on them, and then they don't do as well in the class as they would have otherwise.
So is there a placement test when students first come on campus?
There, it varies from subject to subject.
Oh, okay.
So for the writing courses, there is what we call the analytical writing placement test. That's what it's called at Berkeley. Most schools would have a writing placement test, and that test determines if someone meets the entry-level writing exam or entry-level writing requirement or not. And if someone takes that test and meets the entry-level writing requirement, they'll have a relatively wide choice of reading and composition courses to take to complete the first part of their English reading and writing requirement. Whereas if someone takes that test and they don't pass that, then Berkeley prescribes a specific college writing course for students to take, and I always encourage students to not worry about it and embrace that, because that means that if someone doesn't do as well on that entry-level writing test as they wanted to, that's okay, because they can take college writing R1A. It's a 6-unit course at Berkeley, so it's a big course, and that just means that someone's getting a few extra hours a week of extra attention with their writing, which helps support that person and then gets them to a place like everybody else. So for writing there's a placement test. For mathematics there's a placement test.
How does math work?
Let's see, it's a self-placement exam at Berkeley, which is interesting, because at the other school I used to work at, math placement test was mandatory, all students had to take the math placement test, and the result was prescribed, meaning that the result one got determined the course one would go into.
Right.
So that happens at some colleges and universities, where at Berkeley, the math placement test is voluntary, so you don't have to take it, but if you do take it, you get a result that encourages you to go into a particular course, and that's something I always encourage students to listen to the result of that test, because that's the closest placement that's suggested.
Right.
So if the math placement test says, oh, you should go into pre-calculus, that could be a good place to start. Or if it says, oh, start with math 1A, which is the first semester of calculus, that could be a good place to start. Or Berkeley has a number of different calculus sequences, depending on if one is going into the natural sciences, the social sciences, business, or if one is a humanities person like me, you have a wider variety of courses to take to fulfill quantitative reasoning. Courses like statistics or pre-calculus can absolutely suffice for some students, depending on what they'll major in.
You know, I've talked to quite a few people, first-generation students, Southeast Asian students, and their experience seems like the transition course, because majority of these students come from low-income schools. Even they have AP classes, they have calculus or pre-calculus when they come to college. They expect to take the next level that's going to transition them well, but they find these classes to be extremely challenging, extremely difficult. It's so much rigor that it seems like their high school courses did not prepare them well for the next level in college. What's your thought on that?
Yeah, I see that as well.
Okay.
Yeah, that is an experience that some students do have, and in part, I do think that goes back to some of the resources that I mentioned. Thinking at Berkeley, for a student who's taking a math course, an introductory math course, who is coming from a school that might not have prepared them in the same way that students coming from other schools would. The Student Learning Center offers what we call adjunct courses.
Oh, okay.
So if somebody is starting with something like first semester calculus and they're maybe a little nervous about, oh my goodness, I don't know how this transition is going to go, Berkeley provides an option where they can take a 1-unit adjunct course that goes along with the main calculus course, and that is just extra time to work through the problems from the calculus class. Other adjunct courses are offered in chemistry as well. So sort of the typical first-year student courses that students struggle with the most, they tend to be chemistry and math.
Okay. Now, how do they know whether they should feel comfortable or uncomfortable? How do they find out about the adjunct courses?
Sure.
I mean, when they first came on campus, they would expect that their first one would be okay, because these we're talking about A students coming, right?
Sure.
So they expect the level, they expect to be able to work well or to perform well. So how do they find out that they need something like that?
Yeah, at Berkeley, each summer there's an orientation that happens where advisors end up reaching out to their caseload of new students who are starting in the fall.
Okay.
And as an advisor, I share information about things like adjunct courses that go along with calculus or that go along with chemistry courses. And my advice is, if somebody is thinking even at all, even 1% nervous about how they feel their preparation is in math or is in chemistry, it's better to be conservative and prudent, and as they'll say, it's better to be safe than sorry. So at that point, sign up for the math class that you think is best, and sign up for that adjunct course that you think is best, and start by doing that combination. And then in the first few weeks of class, I would say especially if you have enough time to take a midterm and see how it goes. If you take a midterm for the math class and it goes really well, and you're thinking to yourself, like, yeah, I don't really need that adjunct course, there's enough time in the semester before the drop deadline of courses that you could still potentially drop that course. But at least you'll have started with it, and you'll have started with that support, which then you can evaluate, do I want to stay in this or not, a little later.
It's hard to feel that way, but when you're in high school, these students are top students. They're high achiever students, right? Considered from their school, so they wouldn't feel that way. Wouldn't feel that they would need that adjunct class, or they wouldn't feel that they wouldn't be ready for, right?
Yeah.
So how would you recommend them then?
Yeah. It's partly it's a process of information gathering. So partly it's a process of taking those available assessment tests, available placement tests, and getting a sense that way. Partly other ways to gather information include looking at the course descriptions and syllabuses for the courses, which are available online. And if a student looks at a syllabus for a course and thinks to themselves, I've studied all of this material before. I understand this pretty well. I covered this in my high school calculus class, or I covered this in my high school chemistry class. Maybe for that student, they'll be feeling more confident, and that might be a sign that they may not need an adjunct course, or may not want to sign up for an adjunct course. Whereas if they look at a syllabus for a course and are thinking to themselves, well, I've studied a little bit of this, but there's a lot here that I've never seen before, then, reflecting on one's thoughts and feelings and thinking to themselves, well, maybe just to make sure that I have an option of support, I'll sign up for that adjunct course at the beginning of the semester, just to make the transition to school easier. And then if I don't need that adjunct course, I'll drop it before the drop deadline, or I'll continue with the adjunct course through the first semester, and then if the first semester goes well, I won't take the adjunct course for the second semester.
A lot of like first generation students, especially Southeast Asian, right? When they come to college, especially like UC Berkeley, and they want to get out within 4 years, because it seems like does the university pay fully for these housing as well as the tuition, or it depends on how does it work?
That is a good question. And for high achieving students who are admitted to a place like Berkeley, there are difficult questions that come with that involving finances, because if someone is applying to a place like UC Berkeley, they may also be applying to a place like Stanford or other private elite schools throughout the country. And my advice to all students and parents when it comes to that is to carefully look at the financial aid that is provided, and asking questions of the financial aid offices at the individual schools. Is aid 100% need-based aid guaranteed? Is admissions 100% need blind? And
what's 100% need blind? What does that mean?
100% need blind admissions means that if a school says that they review applicants based on 100% need blind admissions, that school is looking simply at one's academic qualifications to be admitted. That school isn't considering one's ability to pay along with one's academic performance and potential. They're solely looking at their academic performance and potential to make the decision about admissions. And then after one is admitted, they'll guarantee the support for that student to be able to go to school there. And financial aid can involve the school providing scholarships to pay for tuition, and or the school providing institutional grants to help pay for tuition, or a combination of scholarships, grants, and financial aid. For example, that was the case for me when I went to school. I came from a family whose parents were Catholic high school or Catholic grade school teachers and a principal. So my family wasn't well off. And when I was admitted to school, the school I went to provided me some grant money, some scholarship money, and the remainder I took out as federal student loans. But pulled all together, it covered the tuition and fees and housing costs that I had for my 4 years in school. After school, I was left with some student loans to repay. And then the part of that calculation too is thinking about how many loans do I want to have to repay versus what are the potential opportunities I have for graduate school and employment after undergraduate school, and is paying back those loans worth it to me in the long run? And this isn't me speaking, but I've seen studies that suggest that that college education, being willing and able and ready to go to college, even if it involves taking out some financial aid, pays huge dividends over the course of one's lifetime, that they end up quadrupling or quintupling the amount of salary that they would make if they didn't go to college. So if one doesn't go to college, they'll have a set trajectory of their career and salary, whereas generally speaking, if one goes to college, their potential income goes up 4 or 5 times throughout their lifetime. So with that in mind, it's like, how many loans are enough to cover my expenses versus how many loans are too much to make that not worth its while? And that's a tricky balance.
So to sum it up, so UC Berkeley doesn't grant or scholarship doesn't fully pay for tuition as well as housing, or does it?
Yeah, there are different programs at Berkeley, and for applicants who are interested in Berkeley, I definitely encourage applicants to look into the Regent Scholars Program. The Regent Scholars Program is a scholarship program that does provide a good deal of funding for both tuition and housing for people who meet the scholarship qualification. Beyond that, UC Berkeley provides federal financial aid and state financial aid that covers 100% need for students for their time in school.
Both housing and tuition?
Yeah, the financial aid would be enough to cover tuition and housing, but it would be a higher proportion of loans than...
Oh, that's include loans, okay.
Yeah, that includes loans.
Oh, okay,
yeah,
okay.
So the financial aid includes loans.
Oh, okay.
Whereas students, and this is some of that difference, whereas if when I was in college, elite schools like Stanford or Harvard didn't provide 100% paid tuition for families earning $65,000 or less a year, or $80,000 or less a year, or $120,000 or less a year. And now they do. So schools that are elite schools like Stanford, Harvard,
MIT,
Duke, MIT, Princeton, etc. Those schools who have big endowments do have really interesting, worthwhile programs for students to look into, because they can potentially, if their family doesn't have the means to go to school, those types of schools can pay for most or all of housing and tuition, which is an amazing thing.
Now, like for a first generation student, when they come on campus, such as UC Berkeley, such a big school, so they feel kind of left out. Not left out, but they feel they don't feel belong because they're not familiar with it. Everybody's looking, don't look like them. So is there a program on campus to kind of get students comfortable, familiar with campus?
Sure.
Yeah.
Some of the so the Berkeley school support resources are some of those, like I mentioned, the EOP program, the Educational Opportunities Partnership Program. But definitely, as an advisor, I'll talk with students who are looking to build community and looking to feel comfortable about different strategies that they can potentially utilize to do that as well. One suggestion is always that there's a work-life fun balance that comes with going to college. And usually most schools, including Berkeley, in the first semester will have a student activities fair where all the student organizations on a campus will be passing out information and greeting new students and explaining what their organization is all about. And there's a huge myriad of different types of extracurricular activities at Berkeley, like many schools. So one important thing that students, I think, should consider is identifying an activity, or I guess first off, surveying all of the activities that exist by either looking at the student activities website that lists all of the activities, or participating in something like a student activities fair, where they can see and get a sense for all the activities on a campus. And then if they have a good feeling about one or two activities, I would encourage a person to start by going to those activities meetings. And then it is always the balance, because one doesn't want to get over involved with student activities from the beginning, but one also doesn't want to just lock themselves in their room and study, because there's also a balance when it comes to being happy and social and feeling like you're involved with community that leads to better academic performance and integration into the community. Starting out with one or two activities right from the beginning of school, and seeing how they go, and then planning well to manage one's time, and then coming to a person like me to talk about time management, or going to the other academic success strategies advisors on campus to help talk about how to balance one's schedule can make for a good, productive first semester.
So how do students be on track to graduate in a 4-year? Because I think that's, especially those students who do not want to have so much loan, are focusing on taking classes, may not be at that level, but they want to finish within 4 years. Therefore, they may struggle along the way as well. So what's your thought on that?
Yeah, that's a really good, important question, too. Partly, my thought is I encourage anybody thinking about going on to college to identify 3 or 4 or 5 different colleges that they think they might apply to, and do some initial research about how AP advanced placement credits or community college credits would transfer to the college they're thinking about going on to. Because if one can plan well for the courses they take in high school, or the courses they take in high school or over a summer at a community college, those courses can potentially transfer then to a place like Berkeley or to another school that they'd go to, and that can reduce the stress of feeling like you have to cram too many classes together in 4 years, because you already would have some credits and some course requirements out of the way. So for example, at Berkeley, for transfer students who are transferring from community colleges, the IGETC certification, so it's a California, I can't remember what it stands for, it's an intergovernmental teaching educational certification. Basically, it's a certification that one can get from a community college. As they're in the process of doing their associate's degree, they can layer IGETC certification on top of that. And in part, being able to be admitted to a University of California campus, a UC campus, typically requires IGETC certification coming from a California community college. So in part, it's an admissions, a motivation to do that from an admissions standpoint. But the other huge benefit and huge motivation to do that is if one gets this certification that they have a broad-ranging education from their community college, that takes care of a vast majority of general degree requirements at the University of California. So for instance, a transfer student who comes to Berkeley with IGETC certification, it has completed their entry-level writing requirement automatically. They've also completed all of the College of Letters and Science general education requirements. So the essential skills requirements, the breadth requirements. The essential skills requirements are the reading and composition courses, the quantitative reasoning course, the foreign language requirement, and the breadth requirements are in 7 different areas, including physical sciences, biological sciences, historical studies, philosophy, values, social behavioral sciences.
That's okay.
Arts and literature, and philosophy and values, if I didn't say that one. Oh,
So-
international studies.
So would they then be able to finish within 2 years?
With careful planning, yes. Yeah, because IGETC certification provides that whole broad-ranging general education, and they would be able to finish their remaining major and degree requirements within 2 years.
What if they don't finish within 2 years or 4 years for those who come direct?
Sure. Yeah, that does become problematic, honestly. And it is challenging because on one hand, I want to focus on promoting good planning. So if students in high school are looking toward college, it's well worth those students' time to research on the college's websites that they're considering, or if a student's coming from a community college, to do the same, to identify four-year schools that they're thinking about going to, and doing that research.
That's early on. It must be done early on so you can take classes for them, right?
That's right. Yeah, it's worth one's while a year or two ahead of time to start to do that type of research, because they can lay the foundation of courses or of a plan that will benefit them throughout their time in college. That's another reason, in terms of good planning, that's another reason to see academic advisors right off the bat when you're in school, because definitely part of what I do with students is I'll work through all of the general education requirements that a student needs to complete to earn a degree, identify what courses they have taken already that meet those requirements, and then identify the remaining requirements they have and talk about the course options that exist for them to complete those requirements. In addition, there's all sorts of degree requirements that are confusing at all schools, and at Berkeley it's no different. There are total unit requirements that must be met to earn a degree. There are campus unit residence requirements that must be met. There are ratios of how many courses must be taken for a letter grade that must be met. There are upper division unit requirements. There's a whole variety of different types of requirements. So yeah, I for those reasons I would encourage a student to see an advisor right from the beginning too, because we can absolutely help one plan their academic program.
Now, if they're not able to finish within 2 years for transfer student or 4 years for direct student, for students who come directly, what would happen to them?
Yeah, this will vary from university to university. In the College of Letters and Science at UC Berkeley, if one isn't able to complete their degree during the stipulated amount of semesters that a student has available.
What does that mean?
Yeah, at Berkeley that means that as a transfer student, one is guaranteed 4 regular semesters, 4 fall and spring semesters, so 2 years.
2 years, okay.
And as a incoming freshman student, one is guaranteed 8 regular semesters, 8 fall and spring semesters.
So 4 years.
So 4 years.
Okay.
If someone isn't able to complete their degree during that time, part of the question at the end of that 4th or 8th semester is how many units of credit they've earned. If they've earned less than 130 units, and 120 units is the minimum needed to earn a degree. But if somebody has less than 130 units at the end of their 4th or 8th semester, depending if they're a transfer or freshman admit, then they're able to enroll in another regular semester at Berkeley. However, if they are at over 130 units and they're through their regular guaranteed semesters, that student is in a little bit of a pickle. For that student, they may have to complete their degree during the summer sessions, during a summer session at Berkeley, or through Berkeley Extension. And there's definitely the possibility to complete the degree through summer sessions or through Berkeley Extension. The challenging part of that, though, is that oftentimes financial aid may not be available. So if someone's taking courses through Berkeley Extension, financial aid wouldn't be available at that point to a student, so they would end up paying on a one-off basis for their courses. In summer sessions, if, well, let's say somebody's 8th semester is a spring semester, and they have 2 more classes to complete to earn their degree, they could potentially go to the summer immediately after their 8th regular semester, and they could potentially still have eligibility for financial aid. But that definitely depends on how many courses, how many units they've taken previously, and how many units they plan to take over that summer.
Now, you mentioned that to graduate, a student is required to have at least 120 units, right? What would cause them to have over 120 units and not completing their degree?
That's a good question too. Yeah, so and at semester schools that use units of credit, our units of credit, it's pretty typical that a college, including Berkeley, would require 120 units to graduate. Yeah, what would cause someone to have over 120 units but not have all their degree requirements done? Yeah, maybe for somebody it might be poor planning, that they didn't know about the fact that they had a different degree requirement to complete, that they were just taking courses and not thinking about what they were taking, and not seeing if they were meeting all the requirements needed to graduate. For somebody else, it might be that they have a major course, a major class requirement that they hadn't taken yet, or that they've taken and maybe it didn't go that well. Maybe they got a D or an F in the class and they would have to repeat it. So that would mean that they would have over 120 units but still not be done with all their degree requirements. Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else you would like to add that I haven't asked? Well,
first off, I just want to thank you for the chance to be able to talk, because to share this information I think is so important. In part, I would say for students who are interested in going on to college, I would definitely encourage you to reach out and ask people about the opportunities to go on to college, and ask people about how to navigate planning for college. That, like me, there are advisors at every university who are excited to talk with applicants about the college degree requirements for their school, and how to prepare and plan for the completion of those degree requirements, and I'm happy to share information about different resources that exist on campus as well. And the same for all colleges and universities, they'll have admissions offices. And the admissions counselors will also be more than happy to talk about the college degree requirements at their school and the programs that somebody's considering. And they'll be more than happy to talk about the different campus resources that exist. In addition, they'll be more than happy to talk about financial aid and grants and loans, because the admissions officers are looking to sell their school.
Right.
They're looking to sell the programs to students to come to their school, so they're excited to share information. So I think probably one of the most important things is to encourage students to ask questions. Ask questions of the admissions counselors on everything from the academic requirements to the campus resources to what the funding and financial aid looks like, and or asking academic advisors those kinds of things as well. Basically that there are people out here to answer the questions, and a good place to start is through an admissions office.
And there are resources out there to help.
Exactly, and there's definitely resources out there to help.
Regardless of a person's personal financial background.
Absolutely. At any school worth going to, there will be financial aid and scholarships available. If a school is asking for tuition and doesn't provide any type of support, I would reconsider going to that school.
So basically, anyone should be able to go to college.
Anyone should be able to go to college,
regardless of personal background, financial background. Okay.
With the financial aid available at the U.S. federal level, that's available to students in all 50 states, and with the financial aid available at the state level in California, there are opportunities for everyone to be able to go to college.
How about grade point average from from high school? How important is that? And extracurricular activities.
Oh, sure.
And what are the things that high school students need to be prepared or need to look out for in order to go to college?
That's a good question too. With that in mind, I should mention that before I was an academic advisor, I worked in an admissions office.
There you go.
So
okay.
I worked at Northwestern University.
There we go.
Admissions. And the things we looked for in a student's application, definitely academics were important. Academics were honestly the most important thing. So one's grade point average in high school plays a big part in admissions to college. In addition to that, one's standardized test score, so their ACT or SAT score is also pretty important. Beyond that, the contact one makes with a school. So for instance, if you have the chance to go to a school on a tour, or send an email question to an admissions office, the admissions offices will look at that and be really interested, because they'll see that applicant is interested in their school and is making contact with the school. So at Northwestern we called it self-initiated contact, and that played into an applicant's favor. If they came and visited, or if they sent email questions into us, that was included as part of the admissions decision. It wasn't the most important thing. Definitely, again, grades, grade point average, standardized test scores were the biggest factor in admissions. The second biggest thing was extracurricular activities. So in high school, it's not how many activities one is involved with. So one doesn't need to be the president of every club and the captain of the football team and the star in the musical play. It's not how many things one does, but it's the quality of the things that one does. So so the advice is to pursue the extracurricular activities that you want to, that you're interested in, that you're committed to, because those activities, you're putting in the time, you're putting in the effort, you're putting in that motivation and interest and passion, and colleges will be really interested to see that, how somebody talks about their extracurriculars. Many colleges look for, as well, many colleges look for a focus on service, on volunteering in an extracurricular that someone does. So if one is thinking like, okay, I don't have service activities yet in high school, that can be something to think about. And the type of service that one does, the type of volunteering, does not matter. If somebody wants to volunteer at an animal shelter, that's great. If someone wants to volunteer working with elderly people, that's great. If somebody wants to volunteer with an environmental organization, that's great. If someone wants to volunteer with a community organization, that's wonderful. So it's any passion that somebody has that they can connect with service or volunteering is also a pretty important thing to consider. Beyond that, thinking about the essays that one has to write for school to apply to college, those are really important as well. The advice that goes along with that is write your essay to the specific school that you're applying to. Don't copy and paste an essay that you sent somewhere else. An admissions officer has read enough essays that they can see that. That when you're writing your essays, think about like, why do I want to go to that specific school? And research some specific academic program. Mention a major that you're interested in. Mention professors who you've seen teaching classes at that school. Mention activities that exist at that school, or research opportunities that exist. So like an example would be, at Berkeley there's a marine science major, and for someone interested in marine science, maybe they'll speak about a specific professor or two that they've read about who teaches at that program, and maybe they'll write why they're interested in taking classes with that professor. As part of that marine science program, there is an opportunity to go to the South Pacific to a research station. So somebody interested in that program would maybe write about that research station as well. So basically making the essays that you write specific to the major, specific to the classes, specific to the professor, specific to the opportunities that exist at that place, will make your essay stand out. It'll make the essay jump off the page to the person reading it.
Now, for a first-generation student in high school, one has to work to support the family sometime and go to school and to help the parents also. So the academic may not be, as high as one would expect because they have so many other responsibilities, and that goes the same for the test score. Would that student be discouraged to apply to college?
Not at all.
Not at all.
Much like in college, when somebody's in college, there's an understanding of the work-life school balance that exists. When somebody is applying to college, colleges and universities definitely recognize the work-life school balance that exists for everyone. And if somebody is working...
That's okay. That's okay.
Okay.
That's all right.
He's definitely not cooperating.
That's okay.
If someone is working a number of hours in high school and going to school as well, they would definitely want to speak about that work experience in their college essays.
Okay.
Or at a college interview, if there's an in-person interview, sharing that, or putting that, if a college requires that someone include a resume or curriculum vitae, a CV, as part of their application, highlighting that work experience is really important, because a college will see that this person is really busy. Not only did they go to high school full time, but they also worked 15, 20 hours a week to help support their family.